As you might be aware, we just had a politician make some very interesting comments about us. And it actually blew up in the media where she got quite the backlash. So what did she have to say to cause such a stir? Let's have a look, eh?
Another thing that we need to address here also is, and I'll go back to the classrooms again. I hear so many times from parents and teachers whose time is taken up with children in the classroom, whether they have a disability or whether they are autistic, that it is taking up the teacher's time. These kids have a right to an education by all means. But if there is a number of them, these children should actually go into a special classroom, looked after and given that special attention, because most of the time the teacher spends so much time on them, they forget about the child who is reigning at the, wants to go ahead and leaps and bounds in their education, but are held back by those because the teachers spend time with them. And I'm not denying them. If it was one of my children, I'd love all the time given to them, to give them those opportunities. But is it at the loss of our other kids?
Now, if we are in fact getting special treatment from teachers just to stay on par with the other students, then yes, I do agree with this point. That is not how mainstream classes should work. See, I believe in equality of opportunity and not equality of outcome. So no, I don't want special treatment over everyone else. I find that rather insulting. What I want is to be treated like a human being, with dignity and respect, not have some patronizing idiot, coddle me and wipe my own ass for me, as if I was a drooling invalid or something. Because guess what? I'm not. However, this claim that teachers are spending all their time on AS kids to the detriment of everyone else in the class, particularly in mainstream classes, well, that remains to be seen, much less proven. I don't see any evidence for that, and it certainly wasn't the case when I was at school, let me tell you.
I think that we have more autistic children, and yet we are not providing the special classrooms or the schools for these autistic children, and if they are, they're at a huge expense to parents. I think we need to take that into consideration.
Here, we don't have the same educational opportunities when compared to NTs. Okay? The education system, as it is handcrafted to suit the needs of neurotypicals and neurotypicals only. They have all this infrastructure built just for them, where they have all this support and all these tools to succeed, while we, on the other hand, don't have any of that. So we end up with such terrible enrollment numbers, especially for higher education, because our only option is to be shoved into a system which simply doesn't suit us. And in some cases, you have parents shelling out massive amounts of money for things like, privatized tutors, just to try and make up the difference. And she's absolutely right here. There definitely isn't an equal opportunity between NT and AS kids when it comes to our education. And no, it's not fair.
That we need to look at this. It's no good saying that we've got to allow these kids to feel good about themselves and we don't want to upset them and make them feel hurt. And I understand that. But we have to be realistic at times and consider the impact that is having on other children in that classroom. We can't afford to hold our kids back. We have the rest of the world and other kids in other countries who are going ahead leaps and bounds ahead of us. And unless we keep up a decent educational standard in this country, we will keep going further backwards and backwards. And our kids will not be the ones that are getting the good jobs in this country. They will be bringing in people from overseas, filling positions in this country that belong to our children. So our education is very important. And I just feel that It needs to be handled correctly, and we need to get rid of these people because you want everyone to feel good about themselves. Let's get some common sense back into our classrooms and what we do.
I think that there is a hole forming in our workforce, but it's not because the teachers' time is being taken up by AS kids. No, it's because, right, AS people aren't given the same opportunities that NTs are given. To illustrate my point, here's what Hans Asperger's had to say about us. This is actually the father of Asperger's, yeah, and an expert that people still look to, and for good reason. Able autistic individuals can rise to eminent positions and perform with such outstanding success that one may even conclude that only such people are capable of certain achievements. Their unswerving determination and penetrating intellectual powers, part of their spontaneous and original mental activity, their narrowness and single-mindedness as manifested in their special interests can be immensely valuable and can lead to outstanding achievements in their chosen areas. And if you look at all the great minds throughout history, all these amazing people that made all sorts of scientific discoveries and pushed the boundaries of artistic expression, and guess what? They all have Aspergian and autistic traits. So we're not just talking about people that enter the workforce, but rather people that create entire industries. Now, I'm not saying that every single AS person has the potential to be like the next Einstein or Mozart or something like that, if given the correct set of circumstances. But the potential that we have now that's being squandered is just such a shame. By not having a decent education system that's comparable to what NTs are given, it is indeed killing the goose that laid the golden egg, I think. For example, I was the one in our family that was heavily into programming as a hobby. I'd be scripting programmable inputs. I'd be writing mods for different games. Yet I wasn't given the opportunity to further that in higher education and learn more languages. Instead, it was actually my little brother that went off to uni and learned all this stuff. He'd actually come home and tell me about it, and it's something that I could quite easily do. And I'd actually, sometimes go through it with him. Yet he's given that opportunity and I'm not. And who knows what I would have accomplished if I was given the same opportunities.
Since my comments, my office has been inundated with not only teachers, but also I have a letter here that was sent to me from a young man who is autistic. He goes on to say, "Hi Pauline, I'm 15 and autistic, and I understand what you meant. I didn't fit into mainstream schools, they hated me, and there just as much as I hated being there. They sat me behind a bookshelf in my classroom because they didn't know what to do with me and banned me from everything. I was banned from camps and excursions and even playgrounds. I was so depressed, I just wanted to die. I had special teachers at times, but they don't stop people bullying you, and they don't stop you from fitting in. I finished primary school and Mum tried to enrol me in high school, and even the assistant principal there didn't want me, and Mum had to go to the education department to get them to help accept me, but I didn't want to go there anymore. Who wants to go to a school knowing people don't even want you before they even know you? Then Mum found a special Catholic school that takes kids with problems, and they included me. I made friends and they let me go on excursions, and I even like schoolwork now. Mainstream school, segregated kids like me, but I know what you're talking about. And there are lots of kids like me that don't fit in from mainstream schools. They don't have time for us and not disabled enough to go to a proper special school either. Sometimes to be included, we need special schools.
Yeah, and I can absolutely relate to that story because it's exactly what happened to me. I hated high school and they hated me. No, I didn't, disrupt the classroom. That part is just nonsense, and I'll get to that in a second. But the entire school experience, it simply was not something I was suited to. But for me, I wasn't shoved behind a bookshelf or something. I would actually do half days. Get this, I was actually allowed to leave the school grounds at any time and just go home, because that's how awful it had gotten and how horrid the experience was for me. And there wasn't any other options for me other than, just let him go home. I actually had a signed letter from the principal, right, that I would carry in my school bag. So with that letter, I would just walk off the school grounds and then walk home. And if a teacher would try to stop me, I'd take out the letter and give it to them, and they would read it, and I'd take it back and go, okay, see you later. And then I'd just walk out the school and walk home. It was basically the best solution that was available to me at the time. How's that for an education? Now, I think that there'll be people that actually confuse my position and think I'm suggesting AS people should go into special education. So let me be clear about this. Special education classes are a significantly worse fit for Aspergians and Autistics. Significantly worse than mainstream. It's essentially remedial education, where the AS child is sorely left unchallenged, where basically the mind is left to rot. So it's one hell of a pickle that we find ourselves in, where mainstream education doesn't suit us and special education is even worse. And no one seems to give a damn. When I was going through school, there was just no compassion in any of it. At no point did anyone even suggest that the problem is with the school system. They instead just viewed me as a problem student. And that's how they justify it. That's how they ignore all these inequities. No one cares and nothing gets done. But back to Miss Pauline Hanson, you might be wondering, okay, what the hell does she mean by AS kids taking up the teacher's time and getting special treatment in mainstream? Or what is this about AS kids disrupting the classroom? As she's talking to the press, she actually unpacks and expands on her comments. And get a load of this.
Let me also add from here an article from a parent from a Miami State school. The mother of an autistic 7-year-old girl is urging better teaching training and flak jackets, and flak jackets, and flak jackets,
and flak jackets,
if necessary, after her daughter was allowed to destroy a classroom. Or another one I have here from a teacher from the Northern Territory who actually states, autism is one disability that often presents behavioural issues. The problem comes to a head when the schools have a lack of classroom support, which is most common, and the teacher is left to manage the behaviour by themselves. The biggest problem is that most of the behavioural problems are from students that have not been diagnosed, from families that think the school is going to fix the problem. The schools have not got the funding or the resources to deal with it. If a grade 2 little girl can upend every desk and chair in a classroom, what happens when some of these children reach puberty or young adolescence?
Well, I'm actually the administrator for our local AS social club, and we're not children. We're all well into adulthood, just as Miss Hanson fears. And for our social club, we have all these fully grown Aspergian and autistic men that go out in public and have outings amongst unsuspecting neurotypicals. Ooh, scary stuff, right? Now, have a guess how many violent incidents we've had. Go on, have a guess. We've had 0. Hey, that's right, we've had 0. Now, if you thought of any number other than 0, you're a fucking idiot. And we haven't caused any kind of violence because AS people are no more violent than neurotypicals. Yet, these prejudiced morons would have you believe that we just randomly erupt into violence without warning. Yeah, clearly, we don't. So, this business of AS people are violent is just utter crap that belongs in the bin. As for a story about a small child tearing up a classroom, these kids that are supposedly undiagnosed autistics, I don't know what the hell that is, but it sure as hell isn't a result of being an Aspergian or autistic person. Maybe the story was entirely made up. I don't know. Maybe, just maybe, there's another reason for it all. Something that isn't, it's because the spectrum magically causes them to become violent. Because, no, it clearly doesn't work that way. That's just fucking stupid. And then there's the part where she reads this email talking about flak jackets. When you have people talking about strapping teachers with fucking body armor just to be around us, who should be afraid of who here? Should NTs be afraid of AS people, or does the other way around sound more reasonable?
We have to debate these issues. There is a problem in our society. Parents know it. Teachers know it. But if you raise anything in this country that is taboo by just a few of those on the left, we are not going to find the answers that we need. I feel for every child in this country. Every child has a right to an education. Every child has the right to move forward with their lives. And I will not back away from my comments.
Senator Hanson, it does seem like you are still describing segregation, which has been described as outdated and wrong. Should you apologise?
No, I'm not apologising that you are wrong. I actually spoke to the gentleman this morning, and he's actually said 20 years ago his father at his own cost and his mother fought to bring in these special classrooms for kids with disabilities. It was a great improvement on it. Now, because we've got people out there who have a different opinion, they're starting to wind back the clocks of time, which is not helping at all. Look at the problem that we may have, that we do have. There are different grades of autism. Now, there is another article that I have here from, it's Giant Steps. Giant Steps is an organisation that is it's an educational system for children with autism. I know of one lady that she could not get her child into a school because they could not deal with the child. She was able to get her child into Giant Steps. It has been the best thing for her peace of mind, but not only that, for the child as well. So we cannot peel back the emotional side of this, because we cannot allow that to happen. Find the right answers to this so that we are helping these kids. We are then also you give the teachers the ability to be trained. What I understand from teachers, there's no training that goes into this, how to deal with autism in the classroom. An article here, it says the teachers stood back and did nothing. They didn't know how to control a child with autism. And then you have to consider the other children in the classroom as well. So let's take it into consideration. Let's debate the whole thing, and it needs to be spoken about, because clearly there is an issue. If I've upset people, if I've upset parents, that was not my intention. My intention is to raise these issues, speak about them openly and honestly on the floor of Parliament. To actually go out there and say that I want to stop children from entering classrooms is disgraceful, it is misleading, and I think that in itself is very hurtful to the parents who do have autistic children.
Now, Ms. Hanson, I have done my very best to not take you out of context. So, is it segregation then? It can absolutely be interpreted as segregation because you did talk about it as AS kids being the problem. AS kids are taking up the teacher's time. AS kids are being disruptive. AS kids are violent. Teachers need body armor because of AS kids. So because that's the context, yes, that very well could be taken as segregation. And if implemented with all that in mind, yes, it can indeed be misused as segregation, especially if the level of education isn't on par with mainstream education, or if it's just another form of remedial education. And I agree 100% with Ms. Hanson when she says that it needs to be discussed. Yeah, absolutely.
Senator, do you think you could have phrased your statement better, given that people have taken away the wrong message from what you intended?
Well, they got the wrong message from the headlines from the Courier Mail, who put out a headline saying, ban children from classrooms. That in itself is disgraceful from journalists who should be, if you want to put something out there, make sure you get the true facts. Go and read my speech on. And I found that a lot of people did not read my words and what I said. So I said this is, and I'll say it again, this is a matter of political point scoring. This is for again today on the floor of Parliament from not only the Greens but also from the Labor Party. And I am sick and tired of seeing their attack dogs in Murray Watt, who's been lined up because he's Queensland Senator, to actually discredit me, and I won't wear it.
No. Not because of the Courier Mail or whatever other newspaper. It was because you framed it in the manner of neurotypical kids are falling behind. We need to help neurotypical kids. The solution is to have separate classrooms for AS kids. When it shouldn't have been framed as such. And now that it's been framed in this manner, now we'll only have this little back and forth and nothing will get done about it because none of the actual issues will be discussed, because now the conversation will be dominated by these idiotic extremes from both sides, where in one corner you have people that have this just prejudice for us, where they legitimately think that we're prone to violence and talk about teachers wearing body armor and worry that what we might do as adults. While on the other side, you have these moral busybodies virtue signaling and poisoning the well by pretending that the entire discussion is merely about segregation. And it pisses me right off because instead of having an actual discussion on the issues and coming up with a solution, we instead have these clowns dominating the conversation and talking about just absolute nonsense.
So, do you believe parents who think that children have something to gain from being in a mainstream classroom should have a choice to put their kids in a mainstream school?
That's what parents are saying, and a lot of parents are actually saying thank you for raising the issue. Now, under the Gonski, what the Liberal Party are doing, they're actually doubling their funding. So it's going to go from about $690 million up to $1.23 billion over the 10-year period. So they are addressing this needs. Giant steps are saying, great, thank you, we need this. And I think it is going to be addressed. It was never on the agenda and it was never discussed with the coalition or Senator Birmingham with regards to this in the package. So they understood and they realised the needs to deal with it.
So, Senator, have you asked for more money for teachers to help kids who are...
No, I haven't. That was never raised. I have actually, in my speech on the floor of Parliament, which was not a written speech, and it's just a comment that I made, and I'm not backing away from what I said, in the full context of what I said.
There are a lot of unhappy moms and dads out there. Words matter and language matters. Have you reached out to any autism groups and parent groups to issue you won't apologise, but to at least extend the branch?
Actually, I have a lot of teachers and parents who are actually thanking me for my comments, that actually it's out in the open now to discuss it, so that schools and the teaching organisation may have a road pathway now to really address the problem, the issue that's out there, instead of burying it.
So this here is, I think, how she's picking up all these prejudices. She has all these parent groups and teacher groups talking in her ear and telling her all sorts of nonsense. You can see it. She actually reads out these emails. Instead of talking to experts or talking to actual AS people and seeing them for herself, she's just getting all her ideas from these parents. And what you guys need to realize is that a lot of them just don't like us, to say the least. Not all of them, of course, but a lot of them do not like us, and would rather that we were born as neurotypicals, rather than Aspergians and Autistics. And they do try and spread around these misconceptions about us to further stigmatize us. And that's what appears to be happening here. And it's no surprise, really. It's been happening for years and years. Autism Speaks is a common example. So, is Pauline Hanson the right person to represent us AS people? Fuck no. You could argue that her heart is in the right place, of course. However, she's essentially been brainwashed by these people and legitimately believes all these just appalling stigmas about us, to the point where she thinks that we'll lose control and tear up a classroom or something, and is worried about what we'll do when we become adults. But more than that, it seems that she doesn't have the ability to distinguish fact from fantasy. So, no way.
But it wasn't in all cases. I mean, and you said it again today, you are calling for children with autism and disabilities to be taken out of mainstream classrooms and given a classroom of their own for what you're saying is their own benefit. So how is that taking it out of context?
Well, it is taken out of context, and it needs to be discussed. If there are issues in a classroom, teachers, look, let's deal with it. There are different levels of autism. And clearly, the letter here from a 15-year-old, well, he's not 15 now, I don't know how old he is, and as he said, he went through a traumatic time. Aren't you interested in how that child felt at that time? Or are we just going to say, keep going through the whole system? Shouldn't we take into consideration the impact it's having not only on children with autism, but the other children in the classroom?
But that's what we're saying. We're not taking it out of context because you are saying segregation.
But you aren't. Segregation, and teachers are saying that themselves, that these children need special care and attention. They are not getting it in a normal classroom. And if they need that special care and attention, then give them. You can actually have a special classroom to teach them at the time during class hours. Then the rest of the time they can mix with the other kids in the playgrounds and sporting events and whatever. You must consider their educational needs to help these kids progress through.